Today's demonstration is using color to make objects look realistic. My choice of media is going to be oil pastels. One thing to keep in mind when you are using color is that there's a misconception that if you see an object that initially appears, for example, this lemon looks yellow, there's a misconception that you would just use yellow and color it in. Well, my job is to show you how to take a form and be able to make it look realistic. As you can see, I've already pulled aside a few different colors, and these colors are all going to be used in just the lemon. So I'm going to zoom in so you'll be able to see more detail since this is quite a small image here. So the idea is that I could most certainly start off with just that one color, the main one that everybody seems to notice right away, which is yellow. That yellow most definitely dominates the color scheme, but there are other colors involved in making this image look like a lemon. One of the nice things about oil pastels is how nicely you can blend with them. Now, this particular yellow, look at the color difference already. I have a really bright yellow next to what looks like more of a peach-ish yellow. So I think that's important to point out those kinds of details. Right away, I can see that my pencil marks are way too dark. So I'm going to go back and try to erase those. If you notice that your pencil marks are really dark, you need to erase them before you start applying any kind of color. So what you can see here is that I'm going to start with a few different colors. I really see a lot of peach in here. So I'm going to start with a yellow, and then I'm going to go in with a little bit of a peach. And I'm going to just start getting some information on the page. And you can see that pencil that I did not erase is really showing up bright. So don't make the same mistake I made and forget to erase that. That's going to make a really big difference. So initially, when you're using an oil pastel, it is really easy to go on with a really heavy color. Oil pastels are basically a glorified crayon, if you ask me. I'm sure there's other people that might might have a different opinion. What I'm able to do with this, as opposed to a crayon, I'm able to blend it a lot better. When you're blending, you are able to, again, you're getting yourself a nice solid color that is going to, help to make it look realistic. You're going to see me add several different colors. I was thinking I might have some red, but I'm changing my mind. I'm seeing mainly yellows, peaches, oranges, and then I'm going to be using some white just to give it a little extra blending. My white is actually, sometimes people use white, they call it their blender. So that's the same thing when it comes to colored pencils. White can be used to blend your colors together. So as I'm applying my oil pastel, one of the things you'll notice is I'm making sure that I press hard enough to where I'm not seeing the white paper show through. Again, that would be called opaque. I want it to go on in a nice solid color. Now what I'm going to do, and if you're using oil pastels, look what happens very easily to my brand new oil pastel. I will have a little tissue close by or an extra set of paper. And what I do is I'm going to take, just draw on an extra set of paper or an extra piece of paper and get all of that extra residue off because I don't want black added to my lemon. All right, so now I have some blending to do. I'm just kind of going on top of the colors that I have already added, and I'm trying to get the same kind of colors that I see in the picture. I think I need to round this out a little bit over here. And then on the bottom side has a very slight little shadow there. Shadows are super important. Anytime you're doing a still life, the whole purpose is to help you, understand placement of objects and how to make objects look as you see them. So in reality, we have shadows on everything. In cartoons, you might not see shadows applied to, and different artists have different renderings of objects and people. But for a still life, it's important that you always remember to pay attention to a few different things. Number one being your highlights. Number two being your midtones. Number three being your core shadow. That would be the shadows that are on the actual object. This lemon doesn't actually have very many shadows. It just has one core shadow. And some people think, I'm just going to go in with a black right here. Well, there is black next to that lemon. There's actually a very little kind of a gray color in here. I'm actually going to attempt a little bit of a brown on the actual lemon. Okay, just to give it that very subtle little shadow. And then, of course, next to it, I do actually have black, but you got to be really careful when you go in with a black, because what happens is it becomes very overpowering very quickly, and it's difficult to cover up. Another color that's very helpful for shadows is blue. So another thing to kind of keep in mind is that we're using multiple different colors to bring in the colors that you see in your image. It's not always a flat color. That brings up a term that was really important for you to hear: flat. If you were to make an object look flat, that would mean that it doesn't have any depth to it. It doesn't have any body to it. And that's important for you to understand and hear that word, flat. I don't want my lemon to look flat. So I'm trying to give the impression that it is rounded. And one of the ways that we do that is with the different color changes that you see. And when you see different color changes, that's also giving that illusion of depth, okay? You're implying that the image has depth as opposed to a flat image that just has outlines. This image has depth to it. Well, I could see that my black that I use already mixed in with my lemon and created a little bit of a kind of a shadow at the top. Not a big deal. And then I'm going to get out another tool. I'm just going to use a paper clip. What? Why am I using a paper clip? I'm actually going to use my paper clip to add a little bit of value. Well, how does that work? I'm actually going to scratch at the surface, and I can use that to kind of peel away some of the color that I've added. This is also called sgraffito. Now, I understand that you probably can't see a whole lot of what I'm doing, but it is a technique that works really well when you have different layers built up on top of each other. So for right now, the colors that I see are my really light yellow lemon. And then I want to be able to give that little notch down at the end and that shadow. I'm just trying to apply my oil pastel lightly, and I'm actually just really carefully touching the bottom of the lemon. And then I'm going to go on top of that with my white. Remember, I call that my blender. And that's going to help give the illusion that there's a shadow, which is creating that sense of depth. Depth is very important in a still life image. So what I'm doing is just kind of rounding that out a bit and further kind of completing that particular part of my still life. I'm going to go back It's so easy to go too heavy with black. So I'm really trying, I can always spread this out more, but I'm just going in with a little bit, almost like a really light touch of that lemon, just to give it a little extra dark color under there. And then I'm just taking my paper clip and I'm scratching the surface, and that's also kind of dragging those oil pastels around the page. It works really well when you have a dark color underneath.